right at 1 o'clock or 1:04. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for making the time to be here today. Vivian, can you please do roll call?
I sure can. Commissioner West.
Present.
Commissioner Harden. Present. Commissioner Lefkowitz. Present. Commissioner Brown.
Present.
Commissioner Greer.
Present.
Commissioner Khalil.
Present.
Commissioner Knight.
Present.
Commissioner Wade.
Present.
Commissioner Cole. Present. And Commissioner Chester. And that is all. Oh, sorry.
And
Director Batchelder. Commissioner Yu.
present.
Myself, Vivian Fox. Bree Harston for Metro staff. And then for Metro Legal, we have Macy Amos.
Thank you, Vivian, and thanks again
Yes.
for everybody to be here.
Yes.
Our Metro Arts mission is to drive an equitable and vibrant community through the arts. We welcome everybody here again, all of our guests and everyone watching. Our land acknowledgement, which we begin every meeting with. Metro Arts stands and holds space on the unceded and sovereign lands of the Cherokee East, Uchee, and Shawnee peoples who have stewarded it for generations. Every community owes its existence and vitality to generations from around the world who contributed their energy to making the history that led to this moment. Some were brought here against their will. Some were drawn to leave their distant homes in the hope of a better life. And some have lived on this land for more generations than can be counted. We acknowledge we are all standing on ancestral lands, and we honor the thousands of enslaved African peoples whose lives were physically and spiritually stolen. Past and present. Metro Arts invites you to join in our commitment to knowing our Native communities in more meaningful ways in alignment with a restorative arts practice. And with that, Vivian, do we have any public comment? Sorry.
We do not have any public comment in person, and we do not have any public comment in the email box.
Thank you. Moving into item C, approval of minutes from our meeting on February 18th, 2026. Please let us know if you have any edits or changes. We will receive these in advance, so I can take a motion whenever anyone is ready or to take edits.
I move we approve the minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner Knight. Do we have a second? Thank you, Commissioner Brown. All in favor? Aye. Thanks so much. Minutes pass. Okay, moving into our featured artist, Ashley Smith. That's Fredrick. I'm sorry. Okay, changing glasses. Oh, Fredrick, hi. Yes. How are you, friend? Thank you, Chuck. Will you introduce
Yes,
things?
Weathersby is a world-traveling Nashville native and Tennessee State University alumni who is a brilliant musician who connects and promotes other local artists in every way he can. Fredrick is a member of Nashville African American Wind Symphony and Cremona Strings Ensemble, just to name a few. He is a board member of the Nashville Blues and Roots Alliance and African American Culture Alliance, CEO of Music City LLC, and founder, curator, showrunner of the Flow 615 Hip Hop Showcase. Fredrick has curated and produced, along with an additional addition to North
Additionally, I'd like to get, can anybody name a artist who performed a historic?
Evan, you gotta use the mic.
Also named Fredrick. I hope our city really at some point recognizes Fredrick for the work he's doing. He's really been central to keeping the live music scene alive here in Nashville, especially North Nashville, but throughout the city. If there's anybody that ever needs a band, Nachi band to rock to smooth jazz, if you need an artist to show up and is going to perform in a quality way, Fredrick is your guy. All right. Within
My name is Fredrick. I have the great pleasure of playing for and with Fredrick for since 2012, 2011. He's a great friend and colleague. I'm very honored to have worked with him over the years in this ongoing initiative to shine the light on Davidson Street that so truly deserves. As we know, Music City would not be named such without the Nashville corridor of busy Jubilee singers laid the precedent for what would become Nashville as we know it. Nashville Monday Night Jazz, too, and as an entity, is a weekly music showcase and live stream production that highlights the resurgence of Music City's historical site corridor and true ethnic performance legacy. Ah, the green light. Oh, and it's like coming back at me, too. I'm becoming AI as we speak. So in itself, Kingdom Cafe, and through the efforts of Carlton Bolyjack, Fredrick Weathersby, Howard Jones as well, have been instrumental, pun intended, in giving time, diligence, energy, work, effort that Jefferson Street deserves. Anyway, I'll stop rambling for now, and I think we have some music for you.
My father's horse. Was ever generous, gracious, and good to me. It was my father. If there was ever a lady so generous, gracious, and kind to me, it was my mother. Ow. Oh, man. They always understand. They always gave me a hand. You got the master plan. My parents. There you go. Someone who understands. They always gave me a hand. You got the master plan. Bryce Nicholas, take it away. You're the man. Metro. One last thank you. And I want to say that I really appreciate being awarded and selected for Thrive 2025 grant. It really helped us to reestablish ourselves in the community. It really helped us out financially with the artists that we were able to bring in and procure for our revitalization efforts on Jefferson Street. So thank you for the opportunity today. Look forward to working further in the future.
I was about to say the same thing, Dewana. I vote for live music, yeah, and Monday Night Jazz is, it's a whole lot of fun, and it sounds like we need a field trip over there. Doesn't it sound like fun? Thank you, guys. Super appreciate that. I think yes, great start. Okay, into our business of action and discussion items. First up, we have Public Art Committee. We have 2 action items today. And I would also like to start out, I'm sure we're going to get to this in the meeting, and I don't want to steal anybody's thunder, but this Saturday was remarkable. The dedication at Old Hickory was phenomenal. I want to give a big shout out to the public art team, especially Attilio, for all your years of putting in work on this, and it was just fantastic. The artwork, Gordon Huther, is lovely. It's I want to go back at different times of day because it does change color, and it was just great. Commissioner Jester was there, and it was just a wonderful day. So thank you so much. And then moving on into our public art approval of artwork donation, which is an action item that we have today to bring you. And Leslie, are you presenting our artwork donation recommendation today? Thank you.
So those of you who have been on the commission for a while may be aware that we have a Metro-wide donated artwork policy and actually an ordinance that passed in 2015. And this is the process by which anyone who is interested in making an artwork donation to Metro government, they can submit through our online submission form, and Metro Art staff are the ones who reach out to other departments, look into placement opportunities, and then ultimately, if everything works out, we bring a donation proposal to you. This is one that the Public Art Committee reviewed last week. It is a painting by local artist Courtney Gatewood titled Moth Orchids. And the artist, in submitting, suggested that it be placed at any location that the city identifies as advantageous for women to discover and draw inspiration from. So with that, we went to Nashville General Hospital. We have a few other artworks that came in several years ago from the Bridgestone Foundation, 6 artworks, I believe, which are already ones that we have on loan to Nashville General Hospital Foundation. And so this would be an additional one. And as we talk to the foundation staff, we ask about areas of the hospital that work specifically with women, and you'll see the signage there, the breast health center, mammography. This is the women's health area, and it's actually an area that is very close to the front of the building. If you go in, you're there at the reception area and go straight back. This is this hallway. The Nashville General Hospital Foundation has a very active program for accepting loaned artwork as well as donations that they accept themselves. Those are some of the artworks you see there on the wall there. So this would join some of those, and we would have a yearly loan agreement that we would add to what they're already doing with the Bridgestone Foundation artworks. So the recommendation from the Public Art Committee is recommending approval of the proposed donation of moth orchids by Courtney Gatewood, valued at $4,000 for loan to Nashville General Hospital. And before I end, something else I meant to add, the process after your approval is that I will work closely with Macy Amos from Metro Legal. We will create a donation agreement, and because the value is under $5,000, this one does not need to go to Metro Council, but we will work with the foundation to get that donation agreement approved.
Thank you, Ann Leslie. We went through this donation, like Ann Leslie said, at PAC, and it was approved unanimously. So I can open it up for questions and discussion from you all.
I have a question. When, for instance, well, just question, when a government or local or foreign government wants to donate something to the city, in this case to the city, what will be the process now? Besides, well, of course, going to online and all of that, but having a government, for instance, Canada or Mexico, wanted to donate something to the city, what will be the process and how will be the, I don't know, the amount of money, or what is the, how do you measure the amount of the donation? And if that, what are the things that will imply?
Yes, as far as the, who can make a donation to Metro, anybody can go through the process and provide a proposal. As far as the dollar amount and the value, certainly if there was some question about that, we would probably want to have an appraisal done of the artwork. And so that would guide us in the future as far as what the insurance value is, but also I mentioned that $5,000 threshold. So anything that is a value of $5,000 or above, it would have an additional approval through the Metro Council.
And I have another question. So the Metro Arts Commission will help to find the place in case if some other agencies would like to donate artwork, or do they have to go through, I don't know, or find other agencies by their own to donate this artwork?
So the donations that we would be looking at are ones where someone is interested in donating to Metro government, and we would be looking at locations on Metro government property. So if there is not an ideal location can't be found, we would certainly be happy to help with some suggestions as far as other locations in the city that might be appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Yu. Good questions. Anyone else have questions and discussion about this donation? Okay. Can I call for a motion?
I move to approve the proposed artwork donation of moth orchids by Courtney Gatewood and valued at $4,000 for loan to Nashville General Hospital.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Harden. Thank you, Commissioner Khalil, for your second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Donation passes. Now we have item 2, which is future reciting of artist design bike racks in the ROW. So, Ann Leslie, do you want to give a little bit of background there and talk about this?
I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
So for those of you who are familiar with the artist design bike racks we have, this was something that we started several years ago. There's actually 3 different phases of them. They are both functional bike racks that fit U-locks, but are artist designed. It's something we did as a way to bring more artists into our collection. The artists did not have to be responsible for the fabrication. That's something Metro Arts did. The artists simply provide a design that they were compensated for. And we have 22 of those bike racks. Most of them are on Metro property. You may have seen them in parks, at libraries. We have one at Lentz Public Health Center. But then some of them are in what's called the right-of-way, that little strip of land between the parcel and the street. It is an area that NDOT, before that Public Works, helped us, manages and helped us find locations. And so we have 4 bike racks within the right-of-way that are not on property that adjoins Metro site, but instead are at private property. And that is something that we realize, and it's come to our attention that as new development comes in, and based on code and, changing code and the overlays for these particular properties, as they're redeveloped, it could very much change the way the site impacts and interacts with the artwork. And so we realize that long term, these might not be the ideal locations that they were when they were initially installed. And so thinking ahead, we would like to ask the commission for something that is anticipated in our guidelines, and that is when the site changes in such a way that the artwork might not be placed as well, and that is a reason we could consider resiting. And we also, in our guidelines and in the code, have the ability to take donations. So if you'll go to the slide, So what we talked about at the Public Art Committee is when we do need to recite or consider reciting for those bike racks that are in the public right-of-way, and when codes or zoning has altered the site in such a way that the bike rack is no longer compatible with the site. So if that private property owner requests and is able to provide a donation to Metro Arts to the Percent for Public Art Fund to cover the removal and the reciting, then that is certainly something we can do according to the code and our guidelines. And this is just something we wanted to bring to you now so that we can answer those questions and provide assurance to anybody who's considering that. Whereas, Metro, if a change were to be made on a Metro site that might impact one of our bike racks, things happen rather slowly. You have to get approval, 1 year, and, then it might, take many, many months before it happens. Whereas with private property, ownership can change and the site, demolition and so forth can happen very quickly. So this allows us to be able to respond to questions. We would still bring specifics to you all, but this gives us a path forward and the authority to answer questions when they come up.
Thank you, Ann Leslie. I think as you pointed out so clearly, as it gives the staff pathway without coming back through. And something else to highlight that you said, this is specifically for property owners, not for someone that's in the midst of a sale or anything like that. It's property owners, and we do have our reciting guidelines within our PAC guidelines. So, any questions, Evan?
Yes, ma'am. I am sorry that I missed PAC last time, so my apologies. Question for you in regards to the requested by private property owner. Can you go back one slide, please, sir? What between those two? Yeah, there you go. And the owner who provides a donation. What if the owner doesn't provide donation? The owner has to provide a donation?
Well, this gives us the, typical way we might proceed. We'd be bringing it back to you, and if they were not interested in doing that, we would bring it back to you. But this gives us maybe the standard way of proceeding.
Okay, so this is public art bike racks. We own them. That sit on currently private property right now.
No, they're not sitting on private property. They're sitting in the right of way, but they are adjoining private property,
Gotcha.
which is the issue. So if they were adjoining metro property, it would be a different kind of a situation. We would have a lot more time, and this is a situation where private property owner is developing, has the potential to develop the site to its maximum potential, and it then changes how the site and the building on the site interacts with the artwork.
Gotcha.
They
So
might be in much closer proximity than they were originally.
Okay. So if they have to shorten the sidewalk or something like that.
What's that?
If they have to shorten the sidewalk or.
Well, I don't know that they'd be shortening the sidewalk, but it just has a different way that they engage with each other, the artwork and the building.
Okay.
It just changes.
Okay.
I also have a question.
Commissioner Wade.
Me
Were
too.
you finished, Evan?
I think so. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Because my question relates.
It probably.
So property owners are, again, required to make the donation to the percent fund in order to have that moved, or you'll bring it back to us. You'll bring it back to us, and then what?
Well, and the current guidelines don't require. That's what I am proposing for just ahead of time, just to give some guidance. You would be then approving, this on a case-by-case basis as it came up. But we just wanted to anticipate changes and, allow us to, as staff, to have an idea of how we can guide any property owner that might come to us. And I probably didn't answer your specific question. Can you repeat that again?
We're requiring private owners.
Yes.
I make an assumption that we're thinking these are developers that are building some really high cost kinds of X, Y, and Z. It's not me buying a house or anything like that in those areas. So we're requiring those people to pay us to move our art.
Well, yes. And, because it, as I have talked to NDOT and to the planning department, there is my understanding that these are not changes that they would require, but because it is, something that, helps the new property owner with the changes that they are making, with their how they might use the site, and more of a preference.
Go ahead.
But we understand, yes, we're thinking too about, how we will place it, and probably would not be the way we might have placed it in the first place. Although, it's certainly allowable, it's a better placement might be somewhere else.
So I guess the way I understand it is this is like specifically for like enabling site work to a private property that would change their site in some way, not just because, I don't like that bike rack, I think you should take it, but like, we want to make changes to our property that would impact that. Is that correct?
Well, a lot of it has to do with, just how a property owner, a developer might just maximize use of their site, whereas a setback might have been, at a certain distance from the sidewalk, now it comes right up next to it. So the way just the proximity of the bike rack to a building is really what could change dramatically.
Okay. And then would it cover storing the bike rack as well? Like, I don't know, it might not be predictable if there's not a specific situation.
Right. Our hope would be to move, quickly, that we could identify a location, have it approved, and certainly have it in the general area where it had originally been installed, and that could all happen, at once. So removal and installation all at one time. But certainly there might be some storage fees required.
Okay. And you mentioned in the general area, so the idea is to try to place it relatively close to where it is now, and not like, we're going to move something from east to west.
Yeah. Well, that would be my hope. That,
Okay.
I would like to think a community has come to appreciate the bike rack, and even though we have to move it, hopefully it can be moved just a short distance.
I have a question.
Yes.
Well, just to trying to understand, maybe. Okay, my question is, when this art was placed, was in a public area, belongs to Metro, right?
Well, the right of way, which
Yeah.
is
Okay.
managed, yes,
Okay.
by Public Works, NDOT.
And will these companies or these developers or owners would like to just say, I want to get this, and rebuild, but I don't like that here in my property. My question is, why do they have to pay to get it removed when Metro put them there? Or is that right? Or why do they have to give a donation to get it removed?
Well, as I understand it, these are ones that even with the changes to code and the way that they might choose to redevelop the site, it is not going to be impacting public safety or visibility for drivers, and in that way, it doesn't have to change. But we can be understanding that there's an interest in it, and if that is so desired, and if the property owner wants this and would be willing to reimburse Metro for those costs, then I think we could accommodate it.
Let me see who all we have here. I know I saw Sean,
Yeah.
Evan,
Yeah.
Trey, anymore, and Commissioner Wade.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go with Sean, Commissioner Knight, and then over to Commissioner Brown, and then Commissioner Wade.
Okay, I just want to clarify two things. So with any change of codes or whatnot, we're not talking about the art suddenly being on their private property.
No.
We're just talking about their personal preference if they don't want the art near their property. And that would be when we would say, hey, we'll move this art happily for you if you pay us. That's what's going on here?
Correct.
Okay, great. And to further revisit Commissioner Wade's question, if they say no and you bring it forward to us, that is for us to make a decision as to what happens to that, whether we pay to have it relocated, look for other options, that sort of thing?
Yes.
Great.
Yes, because you would also be approving the new location, and yes, so we would be coming back to you with all the specifics.
Great, thank you.
Okay, over to Commissioner Brown.
Yes, just go back to the motion one time. Let's just figure out what the motion is saying, all right? Because I think my problem, not the problem, but more so, the motion to approve reciting for, sorry, I got my glasses on, for public art bike racks in the right of way if codes or zoning has altered the site in such a way that the bike rack is no longer compatible with the site. If requested by private property owner who provides a donation to Metro Arts Percent Fund to cover the Metro Arts. So our motion is to approve reciting. The motion is to, there's a possibility of
Yes.
reciting.
Exactly.
That's the only motion.
Right.
There's a possibility that this could be recited.
Yes, you could even add that to the
Yeah.
to the motion.
I can motion that. Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to make sure what the motion was. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wade. Do you still have a question? Okay.
Is there a minimum donation that we're expecting or requiring? Because while Evan is cool with motioning the top part, the motion to approve, there's an and in there. It's and if requested by the private owner. So are we saying it's $20,000, it's $4,000, it's $50?
What I would plan to do is reach out to our Metro contractors who can do such things and have worked on the installation of the bike racks in the first place. So that would require us looking to find, potential, locations that NDOT is comfortable with, and then providing the, not only the original location, but the proposed new location, getting a quote, and that would form the basis of the donation discussion. So it would be different, by artwork.
Does that help, Commissioner Wade? Okay, so, sorry, go ahead.
My last question, just, this is only if the changes are supported by codes and zoning, not if an owner says, I don't love the way that it looks outside. That's not an option to.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I wanted to kind of point that out. If in your public art guidelines, I think it's in item 4, reciting and D. So no, we would not move it because someone does not like it in any means. In the case of one of these, you all are probably familiar with 12 South Tap Room. Now, when that was back when Public Works before it was General Services, that was zoned, coded, it was built. Now it's going to probably be built all the way up into that right of way. So we're going to lose a lot of that. So therefore, the piece is probably going to need to be recited. Am I explaining that in Leslie in the way that an example of how this kind of works? Sure. But it's not because aesthetically the owner says, no, I don't like this. It is, we do have guidelines spelled out, and what we're bringing to you from PAC is so the staff can have these conversations and then bring them to PAC, then to commission. So just wanted to add that on. Commissioner Knight.
One other thing, do we need to specify in this the amount? Do we need to specify in there, even if it's saying donation to Metro % Public Art Fund equal to the cost of reciting?
I like that.
That'd be fine.
We can adapt the motion to include that.
I don't know, but I do like your change there. So, I'm sorry I wasn't at PAC this week. Apologies. I miss you guys.
Does anyone want to try to restate it to see if we have it?
I would let Commissioner Knight restate.
I will do my best. I make a motion that we approve reciting public art bike racks in the right-of-way if codes or zoning has altered the site in such a way that the bike rack is no longer compatible with the site, and if requested by a private property owner who provides a donation to Metro Arts Present for Public Art Fund that will cover the cost of reciting the art in its entirety, as to cover Metro Arts removal and reciting of the bike rack in its entirety. I'll do the end of that again. Donation to Metro Arts Present for Public Art Fund to cover Metro Arts removal and reciting of the bike rack in its entirety.
Thank you, Commissioner Knight. If I could get a point of clarity from our legal team, is this motion in, is it in line with what we need to do?
Yeah, the only thing that I would call out is that I'm not sure whether this would need to actually be processed as a grant to the % for Public Art Fund. That's more semantics. You all don't need to worry about that. We'll make sure that it's handled appropriately on the back end. As long as you all vote on this generally, I'm comfortable with it.
Thank you, Macy. Okay, then we can go ahead with we have a motion, and I can call for a second.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Cleo. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Ann Leslie. Appreciate it. Project update on Wings of Time. Attilio, I did not mean to steal your thunder earlier. I just wanted to thank the whole team because it was a beautiful day.
Yes, thank you, everybody. First, I want to thank everybody that showed up. It's really important that we all go and, support our dedications. If you weren't there, please try to go and check it out. I'm going to start off by saying that these images don't do it justice. It's just, we all know that. And even being, a participant in terms of watching the installation, seeing them firsthand, on the floor and getting unloaded. not until they're up there, not until you engage with them, you'll see the real true impact of this artwork. So yes, Wings of Time by Gordon Huther. We unveiled it this past March 21st. It was a great dedication, which handled by Parks. It was packed. When I say it was packed, it was packed. Yeah, there's 17 birds, or herons. We have a bad habit of saying birds. Herons up there, and they are plexiglass with dichroic film on there, and then nuanced with crystals. All of them are in different elevations. So as you approach it, it looks like herons or flock of herons coming down through. We had a good, I don't want to steal, but I want to thank, Darius for, doing a lot of the communications and working with, outside media. But one way, that we wanted to describe it in my first impression, I'll just say, I'll speak for myself. Finally, when it was up, you see it there and it's subtle. And I kind of can compare it to what Old Hickory is. I am a resident of Old Hickory. I have a couple people here who are of residents of Old Hickory. I'm not going to point at them. I think, coming from being a resident of Old Hickory, we're kind of like in the corner. People know that we're there. They pass by, they don't really see. And so when you approach this artwork, it's almost the same thing. You approach it, you see that it's there, but not until you engage with it, you really see the beauty of it. Not until you walk by it and see each individual one, you see the colors change. It's not one solid color. That dichroic film changes everything. And then the additional nuance to it is the lighting. While during installation, and Darius came out here in Masania, we're looking at it at different days and different periods of time, and that thing changes. There's no, electricity or anything like that, just naturally. And part of it, I think that's one thing that Gordon really captured is the history of Old Hickory changing over time, and hence the title, Wings of Time, in that Old Hickory's had so much development in the past couple of years. And I mean, something, that, a couple of residents say, they're like, it's a diamond in the rough, and there's a lot of beauty in it. There's still a lot of nature there. It's still, kind of like a sleepy little town. You're able to walk down the main street there, and enjoy, pizza or coffee. And I really don't think many people know that about Old Hickory. And I could say that for a lot of other communities within Nashville that we just never engage with. So with all that being said, I'm extremely thrilled and happy with the work that was done by Gordon Huther. I want to thank our citizen community panel that really went through and selected them. Shout out to Paul Polycarpou, who is the chair of that. And I also want to thank, Parks and actually Legal, Macy, huge contributor to this project as well. But I can't tell you how much and I appreciate this project. It's very personal to me. Please go out there, check it out. Just, all you have to do is go in, walk, take a little turn, and then, exit. There is one safety concern, and I think, I don't know if you're going to get it at some point, but a lot of people look up and they start walking, and I'm afraid people are going to start hitting each other. So you may get some complaints in the future about that, I think it's that captivating. So, I'll open up to any questions if anybody has any about the artwork.
Where is this?
This is at the Old Hickory Community Center.
Okay. I'm sure this has been in 1,000 things, but I missed it. So I'm sorry I wasn't there.
No, that's fine. I wish I remember the address, but it's Donaldson Avenue, I believe. And it's literally next to the water tower. So if you see Old Hickory, the fire station is there, and right next to it, you'll see it.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
As a resident of Old Hickory, I agree that it is a diamond. I don't know about the rough part, but it's a diamond. Something that I thought was really beautiful about the piece is that when you walk underneath it, you interact with it in a way that you might normally interact with birds. And it's beautiful in its own right, but then you go upstairs and you can stand at the balcony overlooking it, and that experience is like they're about to fly around you. And so it's a totally different and beautiful experience from that perspective as well. It was incredibly well done. Thank you, Attilio, and thank you to the artist.
Is there a heron connection to Old Hickory?
I knew you were going to say something like that. Yes. So the blue heron are frequent there in Old Hickory, and that literally came out of the community engagements. It was something that was repeated. I mean, there was so much, right? The community really came out. There was 2 sessions, and then Gordon individually, while he was here, he literally walked, the streets. I mean, it's not that big, and just started talking to other community members there, and just to, pick their brain, what's going on. And I think that's something that he really gravitated to. That the fact that, it is a pocket of nature, the blue herons frequent there, and it just gives this perception, of them flying over. And I forget his quote, but it was something related to, as they fly over, it encompasses the entire community, and it just is representation of the flow, which includes also the Cumberland River, right? A flow of time. And so there's just so many little nuanced aspects of it that I appreciate. And the artwork, if you think about it, it's not something complicated, it's a very simple design. And I think that's where a true artist comes in, that it doesn't have to be something crazy. It just be just a nod to something. Yeah, I was just really happy about individuals doing this and pointing and looking and oohing and eyeing. And yeah, 3 years is well worth it. So.
Can I just say that my hobby is knowing what groups of birds are called, and a group of herons is called a siege. Yes, just so you know that. So go see the siege of herons.
And I just got a note passed to me. So just to be, it's 1050 Donaldson Avenue, Old Hickory, 37138. Thank you, Vivian.
Thank you, Attilio. And yeah, it's just the dichroic film is amazing on that, the way that you can look and change. And again, thank you, Commissioner Jester, for being there, and Macy. And yeah, 3 years in, I know Art Up was really helpful with this install. So thanks again to that team. And yeah, this has just been a long time coming. And seeing it firsthand and just people lining up and like ready to get in there is just great. And hearing former Councilman Hager talk about the history of this was really important. So thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Now we are moving on into our E2, which is our Grants and Funding Committee. And that would be Chair Lefkowitz. And I believe that we have an action. Yes, we have an action item.
We do have an action item. Another group of birds, ravens. Do you know the group of ravens is called unkindness?
No.
Yes. Okay. Grants, you have before you 2 documents. You have a rubric and grant panelist guidelines. Our grants committee met, was that last week? And that's when it was. And we did approve these guidelines and had good discussion about them. So I will pass that on. Ashley, are you prepared to give detail on these? I'll also say that the grants committee, just a reminder, we are moved our next meeting a week later to take place 2 days before our commission meeting, to give the staff time to get some important things ready for your approval next month. So next month is an important
April
meeting for
13th.
us. April, thank you, Vivian. Thank you. April 13th is when our grants committee meeting is, and our commission meeting is on the 15th. So with that, Ashley, would you go over let us know the changes?
Yes. So these are the grant panelist guidelines, which include what is a grant panel? A description of the opportunity, criteria, and ineligibility. In addition to the eligibility criteria, it includes information about the stipend that each panelist will receive, and it has the 3 questions on the application. So this is to collect applications and interest for folks that will read, review, score, come together to talk about all of our operating grant applications that come in and all of our Thrive applications that come in for this cycle. Some of the changes from the previous year, we've brought the stipend from $595 to $500. Panelists will have fewer applications to review, and it's just the reality of our budget, the cause for that change. I can speak more to that, but I don't want to get in the weeds about budget unless you want me to get in the weeds. One thing I'll point your attention to on the first page, the 3 bullet point areas there, that's new language that we added so that community members who are considering this can hopefully read those descriptions and kind of see themselves in some of these descriptions to say, oh yeah, I'm qualified to do this, right? I can see myself in one of these ways of how we sort of describe people who would make great panelist participants. On the second page, it runs through the eligibility criteria. One change that we made here is we required residency in Davidson County only in the last cycle. This year we are adjusting it to Davidson County or one of the surrounding counties that touch Davidson County, that border the county. Multiple reasons for that. We know that people who are involved and, actively engaged in the arts ecosystem here just live out of the county, right? And that being the primary reason, among other reasons as well. Conflicts of interest really just describe, you cannot serve as a panelist if you are an employee of Metro, or if you are a commissioner or a household member of a commissioner. You cannot serve as a panelist if you are seeking funding from Metro Arts in this cycle as well. Yeah.
Sorry. Why is it employee of Metro Nashville Public Schools are not eligible? Why is that?
That is standard language in all of our across the agency policies. I know that Metro Schools is like a different entity, but I think it's
just got a lot of great art teachers that I'm just thinking, I'm just asking a question. And the other one is why members of Metro Nashville Arts Commission, cool, but just the Public Art Committee? Why just the Public Art Committee?
Let me see. Or the Public Art Committee, yeah.
Why just the Public Art Community? Huh?
I think Public Art is the only committee that has community members as well. So those community members would not technically be eligible.
It previously included members of the care committee, but we no longer have. So that's why it looks like, why are we naming that out? That's why, yeah.
Okay. I would like to know about the Metro Arts Public Schools.
I think I can kind of answer that because the public schools are considered employees of Metro government, as I understand it, since they're employing them. I think it's just there to specify and remind people that they're employees of the government and so can't do it.
Okay.
I think that's fair.
Okay. Understood. Thank you.
Let's see. On page 3, what I will point you to is the application questions. And I will say question number 1 just is a broad, big picture question about one's personal and professional experiences as they relate to this opportunity. That's pretty standard in, everything from NEA panelist applications down to other, local arts agencies or state agencies. And a lot of the examples, as we reviewed them, thinking about revisions for this, that's really the only question that a lot ask. And so that's a standard question. Number 2 and number 3 are Metro Arts questions, specific. well, I mean, they're all of our questions, but number 2 is a new question that we included this year. How have you approached collaboration and decision making with a group of people with diverse and varying experiences and perspectives? Just to hear people sort of comment on however they want to answer that question due to what this opportunity is that they are seeking to be involved in. And then question 3 is how is your personal and professional grant editing, grant seeking, grant review, or other experiences contributed to this, or other relevant experiences. And then the rest is just logistics. We have a deadline of June 15th for this. That's based on a very detailed grant timeline that's, planned out from here through our hopeful approval in August. And we've kind of gone through the details of all the steps in the timeline in committee, so I don't have that here. But June 15th is just how we've charted out when we need applications to come in. This gives us about a 2.5-month period to collect applications right now. And what we're thinking about after this is opening it up in the fall. So we kind of think about it as being always open so we can be building that pool of panelists moving forward as well. But last cycle, we were recruiting panelists at the same time that our grant applications were open, and we were only recruiting panelists for 2 weeks. So this is already a huge process improvement, having a much longer recruitment period here. And then the rubric, this is really an internal use for staff, and so you can read that there. It's a simple rubric that is really just about the criteria that we're looking for, and staff will review the applications that come in, and we do our best to compose panelists that are, diverse and representative of a number of different artistic practices and disciplines and experiences, as well as, social demographic characteristics, geography, so having a variety of composed panels. And so this is the guidelines that we're asking for your approval. It was recommended, as Commissioner Lefkowitz said, in the grants committee, and we'll get this posted in about a week and a half if you approve it today, and it'll be an opportunity for community members to apply for.
Could you clarify how many panelists you all are looking to have?
So we don't have an exact number because it's going to be based on the number of applications that come in. 2 cycles ago, we had 18 panelists, and that was enough, but we were only reviewing 121 applications. The last cycle, we had 24 panelists, but we were reviewing 318 applications, and that was not enough. So we know that we need more panelists. We would like a minimum of 5 panelists per panel, but the total number needed, if we have to review 400 applications versus 250 applications, it'll depend on the number of applications that have to be reviewed. So I anticipate, maybe 36 panelists, but it could end up being we only need 28, or maybe we end up needing 42, but it's all based on the volume of applications.
I guess my only observation is this feels thin with regards to guidance for the staff on selection of the panelists. And I bring that up because there's no control in the process. And I know I'm almost one of the newest ones around this table, commissioners, but one thing that has come up in these meetings is around the actual results of granting is that you've got variation on the actual rubric of how to score. Changes every year, right? We vote and stuff and have conversations, but it changes. Then you have variation in the panelist with a, somewhat broad scope of how to select them. And I think what we observed in this past grant cycle, particularly relative to, and what's at the top of my mind is the fluctuation in scoring, which I know had to do with, like, again, the change in the actual rubric. But I also think perhaps one question in my head is, could there be value in some sort of way to create more consistency even across panelists? So for instance, you know, could there be an opportunity for them to be on the panel for more than 1 year or for 2 cycles? Or could there be additional criteria here relative to having some knowledge of the previous year's process? And maybe you all do that in like the orientation and training, but I think one gap that I'm seeing is like there's no control for the variation that artists are experiencing because they're the constant in this process. We're applying year over year for many of them, but there's all this fluctuation on Metro Arts side. And I know it's all in an effort to get things right, to make things better, but I think considering that we're looking at this panelist rubric, it just seems like there could be more here to help to support staff in actually selecting a group that will be well equipped to get us to a win-win-win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a few things that I think are relevant to everything that you just said is that some of the challenges and limitations from the last cycle we're addressing in multiple ways. So we are working right now like on our grant rubrics themselves because part of, so not the panelist rubric, but the grant rubric by strengthening and adding clarity and information to a rubric, that is one way of addressing some of what you're speaking to. And so that is what we're going to be talking about next month, but I think it's relevant to say to this as well because it's related to variations in the panelists, right? But improving the tools that our panelists have will help address that problem also. One other thing that contributed to the variation in the panelists last year was the small number, and that was because, you know, we were not, you know, we had 300 and plus applications, and the volume put limitations on what we had in place. And so part of, you know, having a better process is also ensuring that we have no fewer than 5 panelists reviewing every application instead of 3, which is what it was that we talked about in our September meeting last year. I guess what I would say about the sort of, I'll call it simplicity perhaps of the rubric is that we designed it in this way of, you know, meets criteria or does not meet criteria or, you know, exceptionally exceed criteria, because the sort of information that I think comes in there, like, will help us place people to have these different experiences, perspectives, backgrounds, areas of knowledge and expertise across the panels versus making the rubric so specific that it's actually harder to maybe find what we're looking, you know. So, you know, we're not, and this is, if this doesn't feel responsive, let me know, but, like, you know, we're not looking for somebody who, we're not looking for 3 people that have performing arts expertise and 3 people who have music production expertise, and, you know, we're not doing it at that level. Is that kind of what?
I mean, yeah, that's not addressed here, so there's no clarity on how you all decide other than we have 3 questions, we get 3 scores, and then we decide. Certainly the volume clarification is helpful. I mean, I've seen, and you know, this falls outside of the scope of the arts, but when I'm just thinking about, like, sitting on the side of a selection process where there's funding involved, where you have finite amount of funds that need to be spread out across a lot of people, I've even seen things like pulling from that group, right? So, like, heads of set organizations being a part of the actual, like, there's, I guess I'm just getting at, like, there are multiple ways to do it, and I'm just curious, you know, not to, like, blow up the plan, but, you know, is this the best way? And, like, is this also the tightest way to ensure that you're controlling for so much of the change that is happening on both sides of the process, on both the actual rubric for granting, which I know we're not talking about today, but then ensuring that the people that are making decisions on that rubric have a level of understanding, but also like continuity to a degree of like, you know, some of the feedback that we heard. It's like, how do I go from, you know, I got to exceeds expectation one year. I essentially had the same application and now I'm below expectation. Like, help me understand, you know? So I think some of that is Metro Arts thinking about, okay, how do we, yes, improve the rubric for that, but also ensuring that the people that are making decisions on that are well equipped. And then the downstream question would be, how do you all ensure that staff is well equipped to pick the right people who would then be a part of that process? So your clarity on what else is encompassed in the process is helpful, but my question was just also, is there anything else that you all would need in terms of selection criteria to choose people to have less variation?
No, you go ahead.
Can I just say, I think I like the idea of adding and having kind of the idea with adding the questions to the 2 additional questions was to kind of try and tease out some examples of specific scenarios. And it could be that we could to your point about experience, and I too want continuity, I'm wondering if we have enough ability to kind of evaluate those who served last year in terms of like some we would like that continuity, others we might not. So I don't know how to account for that, but I also wonder if more specificity or asking questions about like, how would you handle this? Or if this was a situation, what would you do? I could see that being a valuable question in terms of understanding a little bit more with specificity about how people might make a decision. I'm a fan of those kinds of questions anyway. So I don't know, kind of like thinking about like a job interview, a behavioral question about how, if you're in this kind of situation, that's, I think, what we were trying to get at in terms of like thinking about the collaboration and decision making with a diverse group of people, but maybe more scenario-based, decision-based questions might. And I'm not saying now or later, but yeah.
Like, I'm not sure that it matters if you have been a grant panelist before. Like, I don't know if there's a rule around that. Like, this doesn't make it clear. But one question could be, have you participated in the Metro Arts grant selection process before? That way you all know, is this a person that's been a part of this process before or not? Or just generally speaking, have you been a part of any process where funding is involved for? Because that is a much clearer question than like, how do you approach collaboration and decision making? Like, I'm not sure that tells staff that like, hey, you're choosing someone that either has continuity with this process because they've been a part of it before. Not sure if that matters or if there's a rule around that.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. That's question 3, I think. If you look at, sorry, we're just on, I want to make sure we're getting to everything today, and I know we've got some hard outs with action items. So if you look under panelist application questions, what is different this year than last year is specifically, I think, to what you're talking about right now, is question 3. And if you're, I'm sure we could discuss adding that piece of, have you been, like, I was a grant reviewer for 5 years for Metro Arts, right? And then there's pieces of that I think need to be brought to attention is exactly what you said, is that the fluctuation of panelists, the number will change with that. Also, we have more licenses with submittable this year than we had last year. So that answers that piece. But I just wanted to make sure that we are giving the, I guess, compared to last year and prior year, number 2 and number 3 under the panelist application questions are new to this. to try to get, is that right, Heather? Am I representing that
Yeah,
correctly?
they're new, but I mean, I agree that even rewording that question a little bit to talk about specificity
Yes,
and their
specificity,
experience in
yeah.
a grant panel would give us more information,
Yes.
especially because we've had a lot of turnover and
Mm-hmm.
we don't know. And if they were a part of the panel last year, they might be able to go into some detail that might be helpful for us in terms of evaluating their experience. So maybe just more clarity on that question 3 to Commissioner Cole's point.
Sean has, or Commissioner Knight, and
Commissioner
then I would
Knight.
like to share a comment afterward as well.
And then Director Batchelder.
Is this rubric shared with the application? I think it might be useful because I think that there is opportunity to provide the detail that Commissioner Cole is asking about. Because if I have this rubric and I'm applying, I make sure to offer the specific examples that this rubric is highlighting. If I don't have this rubric, I might be like, what exactly are they looking for? So, I mean, they may not ever see this in terms of your responses, of course, but if I have this rubric, then it makes me go, okay, have I really done that thing to show I exceed criteria? And that's where I think you're going to get detail in these answers because they are very generic questions and you'll get generic answers. So I would recommend sharing this to guide people to that direction. I do the same thing like with my acting students. They don't know how to rate their thing, but if I give them the rubric, this is what you're graded on, they'll make sure they're communicating physically well, verbally well. So that's just a suggestion that might help bridge some of this gap.
So we can share that, and there's a way you do it in Submittable where, when you have the question, it gives you the rubric under it. So it's very easy to do. One thing that I want to add, and this is, I think some of the bigger conversations that we have had in committee and will continue to have is that So you don't have the application in front of you, right? You just have the narrative questions. There's a question, have you served on a Metro Arts grant panel before? Yes or no? We have records of that as well, right? So that we can see that. It doesn't indicate if that is, a negative or a positive thing, right? But we do collect that information from people who are applying. In terms of how we're evaluating it, right? It's for information and for context for us. But the other thing that I would add is that, when Metro Arts changed its grant panel process 3 years ago, it moved away from the professional adjudicator model, where it's, people from out of state reviewing applications. And it changed to this model where you don't have to have done this before in order to qualify for it, right? We've talked about the pros and cons of that, and we will continue to talk about what is the best way to do that. One thing process-wise is that we'll also have a nomination form, which is a new thing that we're building into the process this year so that, it's just a way to help spread awareness of it, right? If somebody wants to nominate 5 people who they think would be thoughtful people who want to contribute to the process in this way. We can, of course, add questions to this. I will say it's pretty common that question 1 is the only question that's asked when you look at everybody else who uses community panels. I shouldn't say everybody else, but it's common that it's that just like big picture question, maybe attach like your resume as well in other examples that we've looked at. And so I guess for the purpose of time, you don't have to approve this today. You can send it back. That'll give us or you can approve it with amendments.
Commissioner Harden?
Yes, just somewhat on top of this, in the expectations, it would be nice, I think, if we made it very clear what we're looking for in scoring, and I would hope maybe we can require them to make comments to support the scores. I don't know if you all discussed that, but it would be helpful to even like as we continue to change this to be able to look back at justification. Okay, someone has a question about a score. and just making it very clear that we expect them to not just score, but to provide some type of like explanation of how they got there. And I know we can maybe do that later on in the process, but.
Yeah, so that'll be, you know, part of the training and the materials that they are given to fill out for each application that they review as well. And so we can add that here, but in some ways it almost sounds like if I'm just, you know, reading this, and it might give me, it's kind of getting into what they will be trained and told they have to do, and we don't include other examples of those in here in describing the opportunity. And that's why we kind of just went with this broader paragraph there under expectations. And this expectations section is new in it as well.
I have a question. Who is the staff who is gonna decide about the panelists, or can we see the list before too?
So I would not recommend bringing it here. I think that brings up too many conflict of interest questions. Staff do this. Staff have that's standard, and you know, staff are selecting panelists. And you know, I will say the questions are also broad by design, and you know, the quality of what you get helps you decide who to select as well.
I want to suggest that we approve these with two changes. One is a wording change that is very basic in question 3. So it would say grant seeking, it would say, how would your personal experience, blah, 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 other grant experiences with Metro Arts or other grant making organizations, just to be explicit about perhaps signaling we want to hear more about their Metro Arts experience. And then the second thing to Commissioner Knight's recommendation is to, if possible, add the rubric for more things. So I would like to recommend that we approve with those two changes. And I don't know if that's a motion or whatever.
Yeah, the one thing that I would add, well, I don't need to add anything.
One second, I want to go around the table, make sure I'm seeing. Commissioner Wade.
Excuse me, I appreciate Commissioner Cole's perspective, because it does bring up some really good information, and also what you said, Director Batchelder, because 3 years ago, whenever it was that we were making these changes, it certainly was to make things more equitable for people to have some decision making across how and who gets these funds. And in doing so, we potentially have given ourselves less, I don't necessarily want to use the word control, but less capacity potentially to ensure that the panelists that we get are the panelists that will be making great decisions around this. And so it sounds to me like there are a couple of things, these are comments that we might consider. One, definitely updating the rubric, potentially beyond even the changes in wording that Commissioner Lefkowitz just shared, but also adding some things very specifically to the training and orientation. And I would appreciate Commissioner Cole's input and what some of those things can be based upon the kind of work that you do. And then finally, as we think about who the panelists are, we have to be, I think, intentional around our outreach and recruitment of who those panelists are, right? Because if we just say, hey, there's an application out there, versus if we're hiring teachers for something and we just say, hey, teachers, there's an application out there. Well, there are certain people who are going to see that there's an application out there. And then there are other certain people that we are not going to get because they have not had outreach to them for whatever reason. And so I think it's very important for us as we think about who we want to be making decisions on this process and how folks are scored. It's very important for us to have a very detailed and intentional recruitment and outreach plan for who these panelists are.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm totally on the piece, especially regarding reaching a very diverse network of people in all pockets of the community. I think that needs to be taken into consideration. And also, please remember, we now have a great PIO in Darius that will be reaching out to different pockets and all that. But I think this is really important because we didn't have that, prior to this right now. So just one thing. Who did I see next?
Yeah, I was just going to say,
Commissioner Cole.
I second that because I think this idea that there's this general call for panelists and we just take who we get based on the number, it doesn't feel strategic to me. And so I think part of my contribution in this conversation was is there some element of based on, we've done this enough years to know the threshold by which we might need X number, so then that becomes part of the rubric. But then even looking at things like, a guide for who the panelists are, like a subset from the artist community, a subset from community leaders, a subset of business leaders, whatever that is, right? I'm just kind of throwing things out here. But to me, it's there needs to be more intention by which the panelists are being decided, even, and I'm just throwing this out here, I'm not saying this is the way that it needs to be, but if you look at the way that media companies do it, they pull from the previous year's winners. So let's take a Nashville Business Journal, again, not the same thing, but every year MBJ does an awards and they pull from last year's winners to say, hey, come sit around the table and help us decide the next year's winners. Now, again, not saying that needs to be the case here, but I do think there needs to be a level of intention, strategy, and consistency with which people that are deciding who is going to be funded based on, again, a changing grant rubric are decided. And I think there's just more depth that could be added to this.
One thing, okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I know we're trying to wrap up.
No, I just want to make sure I'm calling on everybody and that you call on free.
Yeah, of course. I think part of it maybe we could help is if the first question was weighted more and then there's a minimum that you have to score to get it, because I think kind of what you said was, depending on how many people apply, we might not have enough people in the pool, and so we just got to take what we can get. And so I think even if that was clear, that would be helpful. And I say the first one being weighted more because I think the personal and professional experience, or maybe 1 and 3, some sort of weighting so we know what is most important to us. And these other notes I just want to keep real brief. I know that the notification is basically June 29th, and then they'll start mid-July. I think it might be helpful if we may not have time, but just to do it earlier, just in case, people might have to bow out because they have to get other jobs or have, commitments. And then with the question in the middle about collaboration and decision-making, I think, when I'm thinking about what a grant process, the purpose is we want everybody to have an opinion when they vote, and then collaboration is important but secondary, it's their vote. So I don't see that being weighed as much.
One thing that I want to clarify is that the rubric will produce, yes, a number, but it is still, we use the word direct selection. In the guidelines, it says, something not all qualified panelists will be selected to, say we have 50 applicants who all score a perfect score based on the rubric. That does not mean that they are just in. So there is still a lot of work that goes in on the staff side in making sure that we are intentional and making sure that we have representation in some of the things that Commissioner Cole named. So this is a way of helping sort a list for us to go through. And I'm happy, we don't have time today, but, happy to share, our strategies that we use in the recruitment and the partnerships that we utilize, because we have all of that. We tend to have those conversations in grants committee, but I know that we can be having them in advocacy as well as we're scoping out what's happening in that committee. But I just, I don't have that prepared to include it in my report today.
Yeah, and I would say these conversations are super helpful too in terms of guiding what we want to bring back and talk about to grants committee. So I think they're important to have here. And my question now is, can we approve the guidelines without approving the rubric? If we wanted to approve the guidelines with the one addition that I made and then take the rubric back, I mean, does the rubric have to come with it? I don't think so.
No, because it looks like it says for internal staff use only.
It does. And we could choose to release it later, to Commissioner Knight's point, but we could work on the rubric a little bit, but go ahead and approve the guidelines today so that we could stay on track with the one addition.
What I would just say is it's based on the questions and the guideline and how we build the application.
Like if these questions change, if the panelist application questions 1, 2, and 3 were to change after we approve this, so.
They won't. I'm saying we're going to approve the guidelines with an addition, the sentence that I made, and then we will work on the rubric to make this, to Commissioner Cole's point, to Commissioner Greer's, the weighting, that this can just continue, this can be a work in progress, but that we approve the guidelines and the questions. I just had one addition to that third question.
So my thinking is based on the conversation, all this goes back to grants committee and you all bring back the changes and we vote on both at the same time.
Okay.
In addition to Director Batchelder's additions with regards to like what you were mentioning around decision-making framework that's not here, because I think that matters in terms of context.
Agreed. I think that I want us to be aware of what that does to our timeline, which I'm okay with, but we are not meeting until the 13th. Next month's meeting, we are bringing the grant guidelines as well. So in terms of our capacity, we may be looking at an adjusted timeline, which again, that is the decision of and I'm cool with that. But I just want to.
Yeah, agreed. I think there's been enough fallout around this that is worth potential adjustments to the timeline to ensure that it is as right as it can be.
I have a question. On the first page, the 3 bullet points, those are new for this year, right? Yes, I guess I'm trying to get to 2 things. It's like, Commissioner Cole, when I hear you say like decision-making context, and then I'm going over, and I'm also being very conscious of we as a commission are not here to do the operations of the staff. There's a major difference of us as commissioners and policy and us as commissioners and telling the staff like direction, right? There's a big difference there in our 2. So I think I just want to be really clear on, because to me as both a grant writer, funder, what have you, these 3 bullet points, when I saw them, I was like, wow, that's great to finally have this in here. And also one thing to keep in mind is that there will always be a community review panel to be able to, as much as I would like, and I think a lot of us would like to see that as like the same people every couple of years, unless we're using a professional adjudicator, which we're not in that model any longer, which we can look at, then having people move away and change is a thing.
Sorry, I don't mean that. I know time is, and it sounds like there maybe needs to be more discussion. Have we thought about doing both and like having some professional adjudicators that we invite specifically that may not be in the state or and as well as doing community members?
Yeah, we've discussed that, and it's a budget issue, and there is an advantage to community. It's like Commissioner, who was saying, Wade, someone was saying, it's like we do this, and then it's like a cost benefit. But there's a huge advantage to having like professional adjudicators review some things. There's also a huge advantage to having community members when we do it well.
Is the budget issue because of the travel that it would require?
I mean, they're paid a lot more to do it, right? And there have been a lot of changes. One thing I do want to say, and then I think that there's not enough consensus and that we should pull it back. And I think that is good and to have good conversations. I will say, from the grants perspective, one of our priorities has been trying to restore this timeline so that the artists can get paid, because the artists went so long without being paid. And again, two things, right? Keeping on the schedule, right? So that we get that kind of predictability and whatever, and also having clarity and improving processes. And we are like going like this all the time. And I think that is normal and good, and we're asking the staff to do a lot in a short amount of time. And I'm cognizant of that, but as policy-making body, I do think we want to be clear, and we want to make meaningful changes that that make the process better. So I, as grants chair, I'm good with withdrawing and bringing it back to committee. If that is, I just want to state my openness to that.
I think, can I say what would be helpful on our side?
Yes.
So if you could recap what you think would improve it, and I would add my comments that I don't think it's necessarily helpful to overly prescribe what we want each panel to look like, because part of this is my duty in how I communicate these things to you, and how we help everyone understand the process that we use on the staff side. But part of this, it sounds like there's not enough confidence that we'll select the right people. And so, like, that's what I hear. And so, but if I'm not hearing it right, I need a little more information of how we will improve what we're bringing you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's just that the process went well last year, and then there were some things that we want to learn from, and are those things, and do they involve like the selection in that way that could, yeah. So I don't have an answer for you. I know what you're saying. I think my only point is, if there is discussion and consensus among this body that they'd like us to take it back, I'm completely open to that.
Yeah, again, this is policy, right? So that is our piece to work out. Ashley, to your point of confidence to select the panelists, I think that's why I was saying I think that adding those 3 bullet points that we haven't had before as guidance for us, because in some cases you have panelists that had not had any experience in the arts or grant making and those things. And so to me, this was taking the level up to make sure we are grabbing some people. But to Chair Lefkowitz's point, if you feel, but if it fits with the staff, but I do think that asking the staff to do something without any real, direction, because what I'm seeing here is maybe is a bit different than what I'm hearing others say. And I think it's really important to stick on schedule.
Well, to Director Batchelder's point, if we were going to take it back, we've discussed this in committee, and so many good things have come out of this conversation, and we would really need the feedback of the commission. We will incorporate this, but in order to know how to make these meaningful changes. So if that is what we want to do, I would, I've captured what we've talked about today, and we'll watch the recording, and do whatever. But specifics about how these guidelines would be changed, we'll need your support on that, I think.
Yeah, I concur. Being on the grants committee, we have talked, we've been fortunate enough to see the side-by-side of the old guidelines and new guidelines, so we know what's changed. We know how it's gotten more specific, both in terms of the rubric and in terms of the requirements. So if there are things that the commission is finding less than ideal, then that guidance is going to be essential, because if this comes back to me next month, I don't know how I would change it. I mean, I'm ready to vote on it and approve it now, so I need more feedback from other people.
Thank you, Commissioner Knight. I feel the same way. Commissioner Khalil?
Agreed. I just think that a lot of times what I end up hearing is the same one or two complaints from the last grant cycle, that there was something so different. And it's, if we're basing all of this on just a couple of things that happen, while the information is important to move forward from, it isn't how you base an entire system off of a couple of things. And I think, having been on the grants committee, no longer there right now, that this is a really complete way to, and has changed the information given. And to Director Batchelder's point is that we shouldn't be second guessing the staff. That there's a lot that we don't get to know about, as we shouldn't, in what goes on in this process.
Thank you, Commissioner Khalil. And from being on a grant committee perspective and being also mindful that we trust our staff.
Yeah, I think it's worth pointing out we do have a new grants manager for this cycle as well.
Jackie would be here, but she is off at the summit, right? Doing all the good things. Yes.
Sorry. I am not hearing that we don't trust the staff or that we are second guessing the staff. I am hearing that there are some things and ways that we can help to support the staff in making decisions that may not be in this document as it is written. And I take I take consideration to what Commissioner Cole has brought, again, based upon her years of experience and what she does. And I also don't necessarily believe that from whence we have come is not important, especially as we continue to try to make this process better. So I don't feel like we're hearing from one or two people about what these challenges are, right? If we want to make a more equitable system, then we absolutely need to listen to what is said, not just from community, but also from the people around this table. And I also don't hear that no one is willing to share information, right? No one is saying, grants committee, we don't like it, go back and figure it out. I sit on the grants committee as well and brought these things and heard other perspectives. And so if our intention is to not just get on the timeline, if our intention is to make the process better, then we have to take it back. And trust me, I don't have time for another meeting. I do not. And we're going to be in the same exact situation we were in last year, that we were in the year before. And I trust Jackie. I know Jackie. I trust Jackie. And we can prepare Jackie not to have to go through the heck that we have been through the last several years, as well as our previous grants folks. And so if we bring it to a vote, I am voting no, even though I voted yes last time, again, based upon additional information. We get to make different decisions based upon additional information. So I don't believe it's just one or two people. I believe that I think we're going to get more applications. I think it's going to be really hard to get enough panelists to do that. And so the more we can provide support and foundation for us to make great decisions around panelists, and then panelists also receive great instruction and training and orientation, then we're better off. But my interest is not just making the deadline, right? Because then we will have rushed it. There are lots of things in our parking lot that we haven't even talked about because of our deadlines. And so, yeah, we have an opportunity to continue to do some things if we choose to continue to do some things. That's it.
So one thing I'll add, we're planning on bringing the grant guidelines both for Thrive and Operating next time, and that will include the rubrics for both of those grants. And so if that feels like a more holistic way to look at this, because I do think that is very important when we're thinking about this, is that the panelists are going to have much better instruction and guidance on the role that comes after they're selected, right? So if bringing them together feels more holistic as well, we can do that next month. And I will
say too, if we do that and we pull this back, we are going to have, the commission will get the documents, the grant documents and the rubrics and everything. And it would, I know we always say this, it's super hard, but if we can take time to prepare and look at those before and come with our comments, red line and stuff, just because we'll be looking at guidelines and for panelists, for grants, rubrics, there'll be a lot of moving pieces. And we're ready to do that work on that day. And the grants committee is ready to, as Commissioner Wade has said, do what we need, do the work before. But that would be super helpful to slot.
Looking at the calendar, the grants meeting is April 13th, commission is the 15th. So knowing I want to give all commissioners time, staff time to be able to digest that, depending on what comes out of commission. So as we're looking at that right now, I just want to make it real clear that would give everyone a day, basically, to internalize everything for the grants for the vote. Is that right?
Yeah, and that's the way it was.
Yeah.
Because that's why we moved the meeting to the 13th, to give the staff more time, right, to prepare that. So it was always going to be a quick turnaround.
So we just need to ask the commissioners if you all are going to receive the information, I guess, on the 14th.
We'll send the information to the full commission when we send it to grants committee.
Okay. Yeah. Great.
Yeah, and so that'll be the same. It'll just have the grants panelists as well, like that as well. And we can talk about whether we have an additional grants meeting or whether we feel like we can get it all done on the 13th.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that
If we
staff
need
had
an
enough time and
additional
the
grants
commission
meeting to
has
talk
enough
about
time.
guidelines.
Because
Yeah.
commission, we've had that in the past where, and again, I don't want to keep revisiting the past, but this one is worth it, that we can't come together as a group and make really good, smart, discussion and decision without taking in all the information first. So just making sure that we all.
And I'll talk to Director Batchelder and we'll query the grants committee to see if maybe, oh, bless you, if we have two meetings, grants meetings, maybe one to talk about guidelines and one to talk about grants, if that would be helpful. I don't know if that is, and I don't want to say, but just we'll discuss it. Maybe we could put the 6 back on.
And also, if you keep asking for a joint committee, I mean, if we want more, more participation, or the participation's not the right word, at the committee level, right?
Right. We have talked, Commissioner Cole, we've talked about having a joint meeting at some point between advocacy and grants as being something that might be interesting to do. I don't know what is involved in that in terms of voting and approving and sending on. It's all just recommendations, but that might be a cool way to have more conversation on the committee level before we come here.
We do still need a motion.
Yeah.
Unless it's just withdrawn.
Macy, do we just withdraw this from the agenda now and then?
Yeah, you don't have to take action on it. If there's no consensus, then you can just put it on the next agenda.
So hearing that there is not consensus among the commission, we are moving this action item to next month.
Where will people send feedback? Because I agree with Commissioner Wade that if there's information that we need to take in, we should, but I have not heard specifics in the meeting that give me power to move forward at our next grants meeting.
Understood. I'm in the same sort of scenario.
we will go back through I will go back through today's meeting, watch it, and try and capture some of the main pieces. And then I will send that to Director Batchelder to send out to all of you for responses and clarifications and additional thoughts that might be helpful to the process that then we can bring to grants. Does that sound good? I can do that.
And I'll add, Jackie, our grants manager, she and I have been scheduling one-on-ones with grant committee members. We're happy to do that with any commission member, of course. We just started with grants committee members. But if that feels helpful between whatever timeline feels helpful, we're happy to do that as well if it fits in schedules.
Thank you for all you've been doing and thinking. I've been thinking too, but another thing, well, I would like to invite the community, as always, in general, to participate and come if they really want to have a change, the artist community, so they can participate in these meetings, sending messages through an email, or be present in our meetings, because we can talk and talk, and then all of a sudden we receive emails and somebody's complaining or have ideas, but they send it after, the fact. So I would like to invite the community in general to participate and come to the meetings, to send the messages, and maybe the people who will be interested, maybe they are not watching all the meetings here, but we're going to share all the information about panelists. And maybe if they come here, they can see what is the real world. And before our meetings, they can ask questions or give, feedback or something. But I'm inviting the community to participate who now know that we're looking for panelists. And then that way we can share more information. They can learn more. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Yu. Okay. Sorry. Did you have something, Commissioner? Okay. So we are at 7 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and let's look at the agenda and see what is most important to highlight right now. Executive Committee met this past week, and Capri put together a fantastic FY26 budget to actual comparison. Capri, I don't want to misrepresent anything or say anything incorrectly, but I do think it's important just for the commission to know where we are, and then kind of give a timeline for when this commission will receive a finance report in that sense. And then also executive committee members chime in where you need.
All right, for the sake of time, I will definitely keep this as brief as I can. For the FY26 budget, currently I am in the middle of putting together a one-pager for this commission based on the feedback that you all have provided me over the course of this fiscal year. And what that looks like is our budget at a glance, but with detail in terms of having sections for our overall budget, our capital improvement budget, our salaries and fringe expenses, and our operating expense. So all of those items will be represented in this one pager to give you a summary of where we sit on each of our operating account lines. And so what I have done to change from FY25 and the prior way we've budgeted is now we will be budgeting at the department level. With the changes in restructure to our organizational chart, we now have a more clearly defined grants division, finance and administration division, and a public information and communications division, right? And so with these outline divisions and division leaders. I will equip our division leaders with their budgets for the fiscal year in FY27 so that they can monitor their division spending and kind of know where they sit throughout the year. So this is really going to be powerful for us as a commission because we will know from month to month where we stand. And so currently I'm working on the month of February as of the budget initial true-up that was submitted. And then after that, I will prepare on the first Friday of every month, these overall budget recaptures will occur. So next month, at the first Friday, I'll have that prepared. So you will get a copy of that at April's meeting. Yes, and I can say we are currently operating at a surplus.
Thank you, Capri. To the surplus, it's solely an operating surplus. This is not a grant surplus. This is an operating surplus that will finally give the staff the opportunity to make some just basic improvements, get some memberships, do some professional development, things that needed to be done that I'm not sure how many of you know, but I mean, this is a staff that wasn't able to buy water or paper or anything for a long time. And so, but I just want to make the definition clear between when you hear a surplus. It's not a grant surplus. There's no way you can take this operating money and move it over here. Nothing like that. It's use it or lose it. It doesn't come back. So just wanted to be real quick on that. And
thank you, Commissioner.
If I'm right, I don't want to take that out of context.
Thank you, Chair West. And it's very important to note that we as a commission have been operating fairly heavily on salary savings, which come at FY27. We will not be doing.
Right.
We have, Director Batchelor has hired a lot of really wonderful team members. And as a result of that, we're no longer going to have the sizable salary savings. This year, since I have not been here a full year, my intention for Metro Arts was to operate as close to the vest, if you allow me to use that expression, as we possibly could. I wanted to operate as lean as we could so that we really could recapture all of the expenses of the past and where they may or may not fit in our future. And I feel as though we have done that. We have come to that place where we can redefine how we budget so that we aren't making any of those previous mistakes. Oh, and I would be remiss if I did not thank Dan Harden at the OMB Budget Office because he has really, truly been instrumental in helping us get this all together. Shout out.
Thank you, Capri, and shout out to you. Thanks for doing this. Commission time, so I want to go ahead one quick thing and just say a big thank you to the staff for another big event last week. It was Wednesday night. I was there. Was it Wednesday night? Yeah. Yes. And it was the operating grant celebration at Nashville Children's Theater. So many people from the community were there, and I heard people say wonderful things. Like, we haven't done this in so long. This is fantastic. So just as a little push, it would be great to see more commission faces at these events. And I know it's tough with a lot of time and things, but I was really, 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 really impressed with that. So, and then Ashley, I know you've got a couple of things to run through real quick.
Yeah. Are we ending in 1 minute, or are we going to run late?
Let's see. I know Jilla, you've got, yeah. I think we've got five hard outs, so we're going to need to go ahead and wrap it in about 3 minutes.
Okay. We have an event tonight. If anybody wants to come out at 6 o'clock at Plaza Mariachi, there's the National Artist Thrive Summit that's happening. Shout out Commissioner Brown gave a workshop this morning. We have some staff there as well participating in that conference, but we're partnering with the conference to host a Thriving in Community is the title of the event tonight. We're highlighting 3 of our Thrive grantees and the project work that they are doing. Sold Community Collective, Friends Life, and API Middle Tennessee. I had asked Darius to share some other ways that we're highlighting some of our grantees and storytelling right now, but I think we're going to skip over that for time. You're No. Yeah, we can send that. We can. It is free tonight at 6 p.m. And there's people from. It's a relatively small conference. I think a little over 100, but people from all over who are here in Nashville. I got to go to some of the conference yesterday, and like I said, we've got folks there today. I'll end with a quick director's report, and I can follow up with more detail if needed. But on hiring, I shared with you all in email a few weeks ago our public art manager position. We did have a candidate that accepted that ultimately had to withdraw their application. I'm having conversations with HR about whether that's at the correct, whether we want to adjust the job description a little bit for when we post that again. So stay tuned for more updates on that. Yesterday, we posted our grants coordinator position that has a closing deadline of April 6th. Please share that with your networks that that position will work with Jackie. The state of Metro is April 29th. I sent you that save the date, but I'll send more information. That's when the budget is announced for the next year. And then we talked in executive committee, and I think here's some as well, but really trying to prioritize professional development for our staff. And so we've made some great progress in the last month. Like I mentioned, we've got 3 folks at the Thrive Summit this week. We've reactivated our membership with Community CNE. What's the new? It changed its name. CNM, CNE, Center for Nonprofit Excellence, so that our staff are able to participate in those professional development and other opportunities. We're exploring how to send staff to AFTACON conference that is in June. National American for the Arts conference that Metro Arts hasn't been represented at in years, and so we're going to be able to make that possible for staff members who are interested. And then Capri has compiled a lot of Metro-specific training and development opportunities as well. And so that is one thing that I just wanted to share some updates on professional development priorities that we have here. So I've left some things out, but it is past 3.
And I just... Oh. Me too. Yep. And I'm so sorry, Commissioner Cole. I totally overlooked your advocacy and committee report. Okay, so no meeting for March. Next meeting is in April. And what date is that?
I'm going to go over that in just a second.
Okay, great. Thank you. I just want to make sure we got... I did not mean to overlook that. Okay.
And for next month, meetings, Executive Committee is April 8th. Public Art is April 9th. Grants and Funding is April 13th. And those meetings are here at Metro Southeast. Advocacy and Engagement is April 14th, and that is at McCabe Park Regional Community Center from 5:30 to 7. And I just want to specify on that time for that one. And then Commission is the 15th, and that will be here at Metro Southeast. If it changes, I will let you know, but everything is going to be here other than advocacy.
Thanks for keeping us straight, Vivian, as always. Thank you all so much. I think that we had a lot of good discussion today, and taking that back and then pulling it back together next month. With all that, all in favor of adjourning? Aye. Thanks, y'all. See you next month.